Welcome to episode number 5 of the Men and Community Podcast. On this episode, Matt talks about the limited social space that exists within our circles. Carlo explains how understanding is a natural part of any good group, and we expand on how finding a good community takes both guts and patience. Thank you for being part of our community.
All right, everybody, welcome to episode 5. We're so glad that you're back with us, that you've hung around this far, or maybe you skipped the last 4 and you're here for the first time, in which case, welcome. My name is Matt. This is Carlo. We are Mac. This is also the Mac podcast, Men and Community. The reason for our jovial nature at the moment is we just recorded about half of this episode and realized that we were talking, but the recording wasn't.
Yeah, the technology decided we were too awesome and it gave up.
As all technologies really have their day, and they're like, well, you've outlived me.
Yeah.
That's how technology works, right?
Mostly it's when I drop my phone.
Sure, you should stop doing that.
I should.
So today our episode is going to really build on the last episode where we talked about contributing to communities, building the communities that you're already a part of. And we're going to now take that step back, knowing what we know now, and start looking at what does it mean to join a new community, and how do we do that, and how can we really join or contribute or jump into new communities in a way that is a positive experience for everybody involved, both yourself and the community.
Yeah, and that's important because there's definitely this, it doesn't matter whether you have a lot of community, whether you feel like you don't have any community at all. We are social creatures. We love the idea of being around people, especially like-minded people or things that enjoy the same things that we do. So there's always going to come that point where you feel like you need more. Now, introverts, I hear you internally screaming, saying, please no, I have enough. But there does come a season in everybody's life, multiple times probably, where they feel they need more companionship. And you go searching for those new friendships and those new associations. So I think this is relevant to everybody, even if you don't think it is.
Do you ever have those moments where you hear someone say something and then a song just plays in your head?
No.
Maybe this is just something unique to me. I just heard...
Well, you're Mr. Music Man.
I mean, I just heard Season, and I just heard in my head, like, there's a time of the season. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Moving on.
Let's go right into our cards, which we'll have answers for real quickly because we've read them already.
Yep.
All right. Here's my card. My card says, if you were given a free Super Bowl ad, what would you advertise? I think for me, what would be really, really great to have in a Super Bowl ad is just a reminder to not take yourself so seriously. I think that that's something that as adults in particular, we forget. Life becomes so busy, so fast paced. There's always the next thing that we need to be doing. And sometimes we just need to slow down and just be here where we're at.
Yeah, that's really important. You know, life gets in the way so often, right? And I say it gets in the way, but life is exactly what you make it. And sometimes we just get so caught up in the day-to-day things that we have to do that we lose track of the idea that, you know, right now, this present moment is kind of what's most important. Yeah. For me, the ad would be just a blank black screen, and then in white
Speaking
text,
of technical difficulties.
Yeah. No, in white text, it would be, you are enough. Because I think that society as a whole, as well as the Super Bowl advertising as a whole, is all advertising these new material things, you know, the new car, the new phone, chasing down social media, you know, the becoming, you know, the fittest and hottest by buying this new thing. And
that doesn't work for you?
No. Hard work sometimes makes me a little bit hotter. Sometimes. Then I eat my mother's cooking. The point that I would really want to drive home is that you are enough, and it's the people that you have in your life and what you think of yourself and what what they think of you, and the value that you bring each other. And you don't need to have all the material things. You don't have to have a high-paying job and a fast, pretty car, and you don't need all of the pressures of society to make you a good person and to make you have value in this world. So I would just purely want it to be, you are enough. And I would want that ad to come on almost after every other ad, so that every other marketing company that had an ad during that Super Bowl would feel terrible about themselves.
Great. So what we're feeling right now is 95% heartfelt and just like 5% vindictive.
Not vindictive. I'm trying to enact change in the world.
With a shank.
A polite one.
Sure. Nothing like a good polite shanking. Very good. All right, your turn. What's your card say?
What adjectives do you hope to describe you when you are 75? So for me, the kind of the low-key goal that I've had for a while is this idea that I am capable, that I am able to do all of the things I could possibly ever want to do. So I spent a very large portion of my life, physically, mentally, and financially unable to do a lot of the things I wanted to do. So, I want to be someone who in his 70s, 80s, as far as my 90s, like I even have this very, very small goal of living to be 99, just so that I can do something fun when I turn 100, right? Like something crazy over the top. And we'll talk about this in private later because it's,
You got plans?
But I think the adjectives I would want would be fun, happy, healthy, and able.
Love it.
Yeah.
For me, the first one that comes to mind is I want to be relevant. Like I want to be in a place where I can have a conversation with someone in their 20s, someone in their 30s, someone in their 40s, and I've got context that's relevant. I've got perspectives that maybe people haven't thought of, and I can understand other perspectives that aren't my own, of people that are generations younger than me, right? I think that's really important. I'd really like to be like that classic silver fox, like that good looking old man. Like being able would be good too. Like I don't really want to be in a wheelchair or walker either. So I'm with you on all the health stuff.
You don't want to be the silver fox that advertises stair lifts?
No, not unless I'm like dancing my way up it.
That defeats the purpose of a stair lift?
I'm aware.
What about a walk-in jacuzzi?
I've always wondered what those are like, because you'd think that it'd be awkward to have the jacuzzi fill around you.
Yeah. Yeah. I've never thought about it that way.
You're welcome. We can end the episode right now.
Yeah.
All right. So that's our cards. I think we're sufficiently warmed up, or as warm as we're going to get.
Yep.
So we wanted to, again, talk about new communities. There might be some of you listening that are feeling that there's a gap. Maybe you've just relocated to a new city, a new living arrangement, and you're looking to meet people in your community, or maybe you've just left a community and you're looking to fill that void, or maybe it's a new job. You're starting a new job and you're trying to figure out how to ingratiate yourself with your new team, your new staff, your new coworkers. For me, I wanted to share a bit of a story about when I joined a new community, and most recently for me, that was when I joined a new gym that I've been going to for just over a year now. And at the time, I had been working from home for about 8 or 10 months. Mm-hmm. And I was struggling a little bit. So for context, this was in November of 2021, so we're about a year and a half, or I guess almost 2 years into the pandemic at that point. And for the first little while in 2020, I was doing great with my at-home workouts. I was doing the thing from the living room, staying fit, and then I gained weight, and I wasn't super thrilled about where my body was at. But more importantly, having started a new job, remote job, I was working from home, and I needed some element of my routine that meant I was going to leave the house at least once a day. And so, for me, it was, how can I find a place where I can go, I can train my body, and in a perfect world, I can get some community out of it too. I can meet some new people, have a good time. So I joined an F45 gym very nearby my home. It was about 5 minutes away, and wonderful right off the bat experience. The coaches all did a wonderful job of making people feel welcome, making people feel safe and successful, and the training aspect was fun. Like, I hadn't trained like that since I played football. And so that was really fun and entertaining. The other people were fantastic. People that, for the most part, live in the same communities. So, you at least have one thing in common. And then you start to find that crew, that group that you work out together with the most regularly. So for me, it's that group that works out at 7:15 a.m. And you start to really feel really, really good about the people, and you feel comfortable. And that's what community is. It's finding a place where you're able to feel safe, where you feel like you are a part of something. And what was interesting to me just recently, so just a couple weeks ago here, so for timing, it's early 2023. So I've been going to this gym now for, as I mentioned, shortly over a year. And as I've mentioned in previous episodes, I happen to teach a dance fitness program, and it's something that had been on my mind for several months. I really wanted to teach a class there. Not looking to get paid for it. I just haven't taught an in-person adult class for a while, and I wanted to contribute to the community. We talked in our last episode that there's gifts that you can bring to help build the communities you're a part of, right? Sure. And so this was something that I wanted to do, and they were fantastic. They gave me the platform. They gave me the space to use. There was several coaches that came to participate in the class just to support me, which I was just so blown away by. And one person that I work out with quite often, at least 3 times a week, I see her, baked cupcakes. She wasn't coming to the class. She made it very, very clear from the start that she had other plans, that she was busy, that she wasn't going to be able to make it. But she still went out of her way to bake treats for the class. And what really struck me was that somebody would go out of their way to do that for no other reason than to contribute to a community. And so this got me kind of thinking and reflecting about what had I done in the last year of being a part of this community with F45, the gym that I go to, that had really, really, I don't know, made a difference. And so that's kind of what's been leading me to think so much about this right now.
Mm-hmm. Now, for those that are not familiar with F45 as a brand, can you describe a little bit about what the environment is like? Like, how do you work out? Is it a class environment? Is it like a gym that you would traditionally go to and find all these machines? What is it?
Yeah, great question. So it is a 45-minute functional training workout, and the way it's designed is that all classes are largely circuit-based training, and it's in a group setting. So you sign up for a class, you attend a timed workout at a specific time, and the trainers take you through a specific workout. And with all the F45 branches around the world, everyone will do the same workout on the same day. So you are in a position where you're doing the same workout with whoever's in your class, but of course whoever comes to train that day all around the world. So there's the camaraderie in that, but it is very much a group fitness environment. So you're working through different circuits, different functional training. Some days are more cardio oriented, some are more resistance, but it is that group fitness atmosphere.
And I would imagine that as you guys are working your way through the circuits, as you come to the end of that circuit, the people that finish first are probably cheering on the people that come after.
Yeah, there's definitely that component of trying to cheer each other on. I mean, even today, one of the people that I would say has become one of my closest friends at the gym. Him and I were at stations across the room today, and we were just yelling at each other like, Hey, how are you doing? It's not a big building. Hey, how are you doing over there? We miss you. Like all these kinds of things. So it's definitely a cool environment to be in. And yeah, it's really interesting because it got me thinking about this idea that I hold really close to me. And I think this is a very important concept when you're dealing with new communities. And that's the idea of social space. So I want to describe it like this. I want you to imagine that the amount of social capacity of any environment, any environment that you might engage in that's more than just yourself, there's a finite amount of space available for social interaction, right? Like I can sit down for coffee with you, I can talk for 2 hours straight, and we can leave. You haven't said a word. I've just taken up the entire social pie, right? I've consumed a vast majority or all of the social space in that interaction. And I think that there's a couple things that can happen when you're entering a new community. The first one is you can go in and come in hot and you can take up too much social space. And I think we all can think of those people in our worlds who, when they enter new dynamics, they take up a lot of social space. And that can be for a variety of reasons, but that can be really, really challenging because if you take up too much social space, you're not giving the people in that community an opportunity, one, to respond to you, and you're not giving them an opportunity to share anything of themselves. So that's kind of the one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum is you go into a place and you're not taking up any social space, right? And you're very reserved and not as willing to contribute. And the problem there is exactly the opposite. You get to this place where you're not giving the other people in this new community that you're trying to join a way to connect with you.
I would agree very much with both of that. And I think it's very much a sliding scale because, you know, I'm sure we've all been in that scenario where we enter a new group of people. And like, I know personally, believe it or not, when I first enter a group, I'm very introverted. I need to get a gauge of the energy or the vibe in that community so that I can then step myself up to something similar. Because I know that I don't want to take too much. And it's, I don't want to say it's a confidence thing, but it's I want to play on the same level that you guys do for now until I can figure out where I can inject my value. And this is something that I think, I know you're very good at. I feel I'm good at it too, to my own horn. But it's this idea that even though the final spot for me is this very high level of taking up a large amount of social space, right? I like, life of the party, loudest guy there normally, right? It's in a fashion of I'm the biggest guy here, but come with me. Right? I'm going to take up a lot of social space, but like, you're cool, come with me. Also, you seem kind of quiet, you come too.
Yeah.
Right?
Interesting.
Because I think that every great community has those people in it. And we were talking a little bit about this before we hit record, but it was this idea that, you have this fantastic ability to take up that social space and influence the group around you to really open up and start to, do some really fun things. And I don't know if you know that it is I don't know if it's intentional that you're doing this or that that you're doing it, but really you're just leading the whole group down this path.
Well, thank you. It's more intentional now, and I can't say that I do it consciously all the time, but certainly I'm more conscious of it than I used to. I have a good friend of mine that I did my master's with, and she's the one that really shared with me this idea of social space, and now it's just become a part of my everyday that I think about. And so for me, I think I talk about social space like it's a pie. When I go into a room, and obviously it's easier if it's a room that I'm familiar with or a community that I'm already a part of. But when I go into a room for the first time, I need to understand how big that pie is.
Yes.
I need to know whether there maybe is enough pie for everyone. Maybe there's too much pie. Maybe I need to start baking the damn pie myself, right? And so that becomes a very intentional calculation that I do every time I walk into a room. I need to know instantly, like, who are the bakers, right? Who are the people in this event? This just became a whole thing now. Who are the bakers? Who are the people that are making the pie, creating that space for us to be a part of? Who are the heavy eaters, right? Like, who are the ones that are like just taking that space, really wanting to be a big part of it? And to your point, who are those people who maybe want to do more but aren't necessarily there yet, or they don't know how, or maybe they don't have a fork, they don't have that tool, right? They don't have.
I love this analogy that you're steering down.
This was not the plan.
Do you want pie?
This is not the plan. I would love pie. And those people without the fork just feel like they don't have the tools to engage. And so for me, a comment that I get quite often is that I will slow play a situation until I understand what the social dynamic is. And then the first thing that I try to do is I try to find one person. Mm-hmm. I try to find one person that I can connect with, somebody that I resonate with, someone that I can start to build or form a connection with, so that my experience can be better, first of all, but also so that I better understand what's going on in that environment. And so for me, like, this is also how I network in a lot of situations too, whether at conferences or whatever. But I need to understand what that social scenario is. I can be very, very loud. I can certainly take up my fair share of social space. I can also create environments where people want to be more involved, right? Bake more pie.
Yeah.
And I do that through, whether it's through my classes or through kind of the situations that I try to create. But, you can't do that if you don't know what the environment's like when you show up.
Yeah. So what we're both kind of saying, I think, at this point is that the number one step when you're entering a new group or a new community is trying to get a gauge of what that community is like and who makes it up, right? And this is a skill that, believe it or not, I think both introverts and extroverts have.
Yeah.
An introvert walks into a room and they're going to identify, the really loud person, and they're going to be like, I'm staying away from him. Where the extrovert would identify that person and kind of flock towards them, right? So you already have that skill set. You just need to be aware enough to identify it, I think.
Yeah.
And then it comes again down to this level of self-awareness of trying to decide where you want to fall into that social circle. Because, and this is dynamic, because you can be in days of really high energy and you want to be the big person. And sometimes you're like, I'm spent, I'm tired, I have no social battery. I want to just be the quiet guy in the corner. And then maybe as time goes by, you'll elevate that energy a little bit. I got a phenomenal compliment from a friend of mine a couple months ago. And he said, through all of the things you have going on in your life, one of the things that always astonishes me is that you have this ability to instantaneously raise your rate of vibration, right? So raise your energy, so that he's like, I'm never concerned about putting people in front of you. And he was referring to it in a professional manner, because I know that you will always be able to instantly turn that on and give your best.
Right.
And it was a phenomenal compliment to get, but it was also kind of this realization that we aren't always in the headspace to be that really, energetic giver in a social situation. But there's a skill set involved with bringing that energy up. And I don't want to call it disingenuous, because that's not the right word, but it's fictitious, right? It's putting a face on kind of in front. And the point I'm getting back by here is that when you are in a new group and that normally that's the social space you want to take up, sometimes you have to show up in the beginning, at least, with that extra level of energy, just until you pick it back up again, right? Because the first few kind of interactions you have with a community tend to set the tone for your role in that group, right? And I'm not saying you can't change it later, but what I'm saying is that just on this concept of, the social pie and how much you're going to take up of it, I think it's important that you intentionally set a tone for that kind of pie.
See, I find that very interesting, and I agree. I think that you definitely need to be intentional about how you're showing up in terms of what parts of you want others to see.
Yeah.
Because we all do that, right? It's not being disingenuous to show up and only share parts of you, right? Like, that's a very, very natural thing. We can't be completely open and vulnerable with somebody that we just meet off the street.
And that's the point I'm trying to get
we would terrify them. By the same token, though, I think that, when I think back to experiences where people have come in, and I refer to it as like coming in hot, like they come into a new environment and they're trying so hard to ingratiate themselves that they take up all the pie, and they're just like, oh, your pie's delicious. Give me a third, fourth, fifth, sixth
and
piece.
You can spot that.
Right
from the get-go. And then it feels disingenuous.
That's right. But also what'll happen too is those people at some point will have some sort of interaction where they'll run up against a wall and they'll say, oh, I need to back off a little bit. And more often than not, the equilibrium point for that person in that community ends up being less social than maybe they intended on being to begin with. And so while I agree, we need to be really intentional about how we show up in the beginning, especially how we want people to see us when we arrive, but we also need to slow play it a little bit. And I think this is something that's really important. We need to really, really understand that communities typically are also going to be patient. We need to be really intentional about what we're sharing of ourselves, but communities are also going to be patient.
Yeah,
they're not going
to. A good community will.
Right, right, and they don't need to see all of you all at once, and so you get to slow play a little bit about that, and so we get the opportunity to be patient because of it.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with you. I think it's kind of a difficult thing to explain. It's this idea that you have to understand that most good communities will be patient. Most good communities will allow you to slot yourself in. They'll allow you to be vulnerable when you need to be. And in saying all of that, that is a comfort for a new community. Maybe takes a little bit of a pressure off of you, but also try to be intentional about this idea of who you want to be in the community, right? Because there's a power in other people in that group looking at you and going, oh, that's Carlo. I know that he's, I'm going to have this kind of conversation with him. He's going to bring this kind of energy. He's going to ask me all the questions if I bring anything up, right? There's a certain level of power in that. And if you understand a little bit more about who you want to be in that group, I think it opens up some doors for you about how you can bring value and you can be a part of that group, right?
Yeah, I like that. I think it's really important to understand that. I think that's really interesting. I'm back to baking. Are
you hungry?
Nah, weirdly, I don't think I am. I think it's really important for us to know, and it comes back to what we talked about in the last episode, just identifying things, being really aware. I think that for the people that this comes really naturally to us. And so on some level, the reason why I'm hesitating and stuttering right now is it comes so naturally to us, it feels almost strange to say it. But
sure.
Then by the same token, I know people that feel uncomfortable and don't navigate spaces the same way that we do. And so to me, I just can't underscore enough how important it is to walk into a new bakery, understand who's baking the pie, meaning who's creating, facilitating that space, creating the space. For me at F45, that would be the coaches, right? They're the ones that are providing, creating, allowing the space to exist, right? We need to know who's purchasing, right? Who's buying the pie, who's eating the pie. These are the people that are taking up that social space. In that regard, it's the people that are participating in the classes, right? And so you got to understand who's taking up how much of the pie that's available, in the same way that you need to know what's going on with the coaches. Some days the coaches are going to be less energetic than others too, and there's just going to be less pie available. Or maybe that's when I have to step in and bake the pie myself. Not to say that I start teaching the class, but like when coaches, it's very clear that they're just a little bit less energetic. That's when I'll step in that class and I'll be a bit louder. Maybe I'll yell across the room and say, you got this, Michael, right? Like I'll just be a little bit more vocal because I need to be more of a baker. And I just think that it would be really valuable for more people to enter with that intentionality that way.
So to paraphrase a little bit, entering into a new community with the intention of finding a spot that you can provide value in.
Yeah.
Right? Because as we kind of said in our previous episode, there are communities that we find value in, that provide us value, and then there's ones that do both, right? So when entering this new group, if you can identify that right from the get-go, it gives you a couple things. One, it makes you aware of whether this is a community you want to be a part of. Because let's face it, I told the story in the last episode about becoming part of a community and then making the decision to step back from that. Sometimes things aren't worth the investment, and the sooner you can identify that, the sooner you can spend time on something that is.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm a big fan of this concept of value in life. Yeah. And we're going to talk in depth about this in a later episode. Yeah. But if that community, if you can identify quickly that it's not giving you the value that you need out of it, or that maybe you need right now, and this does not mean the people in it are bad, it does not mean the group is bad, or the subject matter of the group is bad, it means it's just not right for you at that time, that's a good thing that you can identify that early. And maybe you'll also identify early that this group is exactly what you need.
Yeah.
And you want to be a part of it in whatever capacity they need you to be. And then at that point, you can find an area, that little slice of pie that is suited for you, and you slot yourself in there. And then hopefully that group will give you opportunities to grow a little bit more, right? And you'll find yourself ingrained in this community. And guys, I'm not gonna low play this. Having a community that you feel at home in, you can feel vulnerable, you can feel strong, you can feel supported, loved, valued. That is, at the worst of times in your life, that is something that you will grow to value more than almost anything else, right? So if you do not have a community in your life, make it one of your goals for 2023 to find one.
Yeah, I think that's really, really, really well said. I also want to draw a really important caveat there.
Sure.
I think that it is indeed very important to be able to make some very quick evaluations of whether this is the right community for you for a whole number of reasons. What I would caution everybody, though, is to be really aware if you find that this is a trend. If you start going into communities and you're like, nope, not for me, nope, not for me, nope, not for me. Because what you're going to find really quickly is that if there is repeatedly different communities that you're showing up in and you're not feeling like they're for you, one of a couple things may be happening. One, maybe you're not choosing the right communities. Maybe you're not stretching your comfort zone enough to find the ones that are right for you right now. But maybe you're not being patient enough.
Yes.
And I think that we want to keep coming back to this idea of patience. And so much of our world today is about instant gratification. Community doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Right? You can't build Rome in a day, so they say, and that's a hell of a community. So I hear. I don't know. I've only been there for a few days. But the point is that if we're going to go in and make these summary judgments about groups of people, organizations, communities, super, super quickly, that can be really damning too. You know, I think about when I was in business school, and every business student except me, so it seemed, hated group projects. Oh, I got the worst group. They don't do anything. They don't actually work that hard. I'm going to have to do all the work, and they're going to just, get the benefits of my hard work. And this is a narrative that I hear with almost every person who's gone through business school. And I loved every single group project that I was a part of. So much so that one of the group projects I was a part of, I ended up getting extra, it's a long story, but I ended up getting extra bonus marks because we were able to create such a really good environment in that group that when it came time to assess members of the group unilaterally was like, Matt, you should have bonus marks. You should get 10% higher grade than the rest of us. Unheard of. These are like future capitalists of the world, right? Like, this is not supposed to be the group that's supposed to be withholding their own marks to be able to share more with others. But these are the kinds of things that you can create, these spaces that you can create when you're contributing to new communities, if you're patient and if you're willing to invest some of your time into supporting, even if they don't feel like the right community right now.
Yeah. And thank you for putting that in there, because my intention was not to say don't give this community a chance. My intention was to say is that identify what it is, in this community that you value, that you like, and maybe the things that you don't like. And after a good judgment period, make that decision. Because a good community that you would find long-term value in will take you out of your comfort zone, right? So that means in the beginning stages of these new relationships, you're going to be faced with these scenarios that you don't feel comfortable in, meeting these new people, and you have to be willing to push through that, knowing it will grow you as a person.
Yeah.
So I would say maybe that point in time where you can start to make those evaluations is once you start to become comfortable in that group a little bit, because you pushed through the hard parts, you're comfortable enough to have some of those more intimate conversations, and now you'll have a better idea of what that group is actually made of.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
I really, really like that. So I think we'll start to wrap this one up here. Sure. And I think that for me, what I'm hearing is when we're joining new communities, it's important to go in with an open mind and open heart. It's important to get a sense of what social space is available and be really intentional about how you want to show up, what versions of yourself you want to share, and what social space you want to consume. And that's different for everybody. It's important to be patient. It's important to understand that a good community will be patient with you, and that a good community will be there on your worst days to support you in the best way that they can. And that's one of the beautiful parts about community. Yeah,
there's good people everywhere.
Yeah.
You look everywhere. I think it's a Mr. Rogers saying, look for the helpers. Have you heard this?
Maybe. Tell me more.
So Mr. Rogers, if you grew up in the 90s, you would have seen him all over the place. He was a child's TV show host, and he would say that when bad things happen, don't focus on the bad, look for the helpers, because there's always people helping, and that is the good in the world. There's good everywhere. You just have to look for it. And you will find a good community to hitch your wagon to.
Makes me feel really old that we just had to contextualize who Mr. Rogers is on our podcast.
Next week, we'll talk about what a floppy disk is, or that little save icon on your favorite programs.
Beautiful. Can't wait to hear it. I just want to say that I'm really, really grateful for you that we can have these experiences where you and I collectively get to join new communities and watch. I get to watch you and the way that you step in and build people up in these new communities and enroll people into being a part of your community that you are the lead on. And it's just so fun to watch. So thank you.
Thank you. I would say one of the things I enjoy the most is that you never hesitate to challenge my ideas in the most supportive of ways, right? Like I very often say things and you find a way to either articulate it a little bit better or throw in an extra concept there and try to help me flesh that idea out a little bit more or consider something I hadn't done before. And that is not something many people in my life can do. So thank you for being that extra little bit of challenge.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you. As always, everybody, thank you so much for joining us for today's episode. We really, really appreciate you spending your time with us, and we hope that you were able to take something away that is applicable in your life. As always, we want to hear what you think. We want to hear how you show up when you enter a new community. And as always, you can find us on all your favorite social media platforms. Well, if we're being honest, there are favorite social media platforms. Hopefully you're there too.
Yep.
At Men and Community, as well as any of the major podcasting platforms. Make sure you're subscribing to our podcast. Follow us on the social media platforms. And as always, we can't wait to connect with you.
Yeah, if you're on a podcast platform, please leave a review. Apparently, I've heard from other podcasts that's a really big deal. So leave a review, and may provide us with some comments or some feedback on social media, and please share us with the people that you care about. If you find value in what we talk about and you think they would too, please send that share link over.
And if you don't find value, share us with the people that you don't care about. Just kidding. Hopefully you care about everyone. Share it with everybody that you love, and see you on the flip side in the next episode.
Go eat some pie.
Thanks, everyone.